Hello and welcome to today's episode of Rainer on Leadership, your online home for leadership lessons and advice for the local church. I'm your host, Sam Rainer. I have with me my dad, the CEO, the founder, the man, the Thom, Thom. We're going to spell my name so that no one can remember how. Of course, it does set you apart from all the other Toms. So congratulations.
Well, it was a fifth grade thing.
The decision you made in fifth grade ended up following you through several books with a name on the title.
Yes. My parents had me as a TOM, but there were just too many TOMs in the fifth grade at Union Springs Elementary School. So I said, I declare I'm Thom. My teachers never questioned me. I mean, it's kind of, I declared it and started writing it on there. And it's like, well, okay, he's weird. Let's do it.
That's probably what they thought. We've got a great topic today. We're talking about equipping your people in the church to give more sacrificially. Now, this is an important topic because obviously coming out of 2021, a lot of churches had a good giving year. So you want to push into that a little bit. If it's a strength, not every church did. So I want to recognize that, some may be struggling, but we're hearing at ground level that a lot of churches did okay. And this year may not be the same, but now's the time
Sure.
to play into a strength. And I know that we've got one group that can help with that.
Oh, we've got a couple of things. We're trying to be more intentional about providing resource recommendations or reviews. They may not always be good. For example, as we look at stewardship issues, generosity issues, Church Growth Services is just the best at that. They've been doing it for many decades, and they know what they're doing. They know churches. So once you start looking at, okay, we need to raise funds for a capital project. We need to raise funds for the budget. Talk to them. They're going to have some new resources out in 2022 as well. But talk to Church Growth Services. I'm going to ask Amy to put the link there because that's the resource that I want to recommend. And then, I mentioned also you may have some type of capital program that you're thinking about because things have changed and the way we're building and doing building is different. And I got to say, I love how Brown Church Development Group, which is a design build firm out of Nebraska. I love the way that they are leading in this new era. So if you're thinking about anything on capital building, any type of project, that's just a good alternative. So Sam, you opened it up for me. The two that I wanted to recommend is our resources for today, and we'll be recommending others in the future. But I want you to talk about our huge sponsor, Southeastern Seminary.
We're certainly grateful to Southeastern Seminary, a wonderful institution that is committed to helping you get the training you need to pursue your ministry from anywhere around the world. And we want to help you do that. So go check them out at sebts.edu. And if you go to the checkout section after applying, use the coupon code Church Answers, one word and plural, answers, Church Answers, all those letters together, and they'll waive the application fee. So really you can begin this process risk-free. So go check out Southeastern Seminary, sebts.edu. No matter what stage of life's journey you find yourself in, they can help you take that next step to be equipped to disciple and teach others, because Southeastern is a seminary that isn't just about theological education. It's also about ministry preparation. So go explore some degrees, schedule a visit, apply at sebts.edu, and then use that coupon code Church Answers when you check out. They'll waive all the fees. Can't beat that.
The Apostle Paul told leaders to equip the Christians, the saints, to do the work of ministry. When we hear that phrase, if you were to ask a typical pastor or an informed church member, what does equipping mean? They might say, well, learning the Bible more. They might say sharing your faith more, becoming more understanding about the depth and breadth of prayer. Those are the types of things that they might naturally gravitate to. But you are not fully equipping your people until you talk to them and equip them in the area of giving or generosity, because that is, I haven't verified it. I've seen it written many times, so I haven't confirmed it myself, where some have said that Jesus talked about money as much or more than any other topic because that's where your heart is. It's where you're spending your money is a reflection of your heart. So if we're not equipping our people to give sacrificially, then we're not fully equipping them. So what we're going to do today, Sam, is we're going to give the what behind it and then some of the
Yeah,
how.
giving is a spiritual discipline. Giving is a spiritual gift. It's both, which means you need constant equipping in the church around the issue of giving, or more appropriately, stewardship, because it's God's. He's given it to you, and you are to steward those resources. So all believers are called to give generously. And I think that we push back on this a little bit because it involves money, and it's easier to talk about things like Bible reading or prayer because they are less controversial, because there's not as much emotion or stigma attached to something like prayer, as opposed to, I don't know, your checkbook, and it feels a
Yeah,
lot more
but
personal.
the other part of the stigma, though, Sam, is there has been abuse of the
Sure.
financial issue by television ministers, by pastors. And when I say the television ministers, that was kind of, well, I don't know, radio may have been the beginning of it, but where people just don't trust you when you're asking for money because they've seen the abuse that is out there among other leaders in the past and probably in the
And I think
present
that's a
as
great
well.
point. I'm just assuming a positive relationship between pastor and church. But yes, there's been gross negligence and abuse, and I think abuse is the right word when it comes to issues of money with certain examples. I mean, and we could spend several podcasts talking about all those cases. We're not, because I don't know it'd be a worthwhile endeavor. Um, but uh, it's still something, just because others have abused this tragically doesn't mean that you neglect it. In fact, you're only going to
Right.
exacerbate the problem if you ignore equipping your people in the area of stewardship and giving and generously and sacrificially.
They will either be misguided that it's not important, it'll be an issue of absence and ignorance, or they will be misguided that it's an issue of abuse. You have to give them the biblical reason to do so. That's why you equip them. So all believers are called to give generously. It does need to take place. Equipping does need to take place in the pulpit, but it shouldn't be limited to the pulpit.
Yeah, preaching alone is not enough to create a culture of sacrificial giving. This is one of the things that Church Growth Services helps with, and thankful to have people like them providing their resources. You have to equip beyond the pulpit. We've said this several times on the show, but I mean, um, some of the worst advice you can give a pastor and new pastors: just preach the word. Just get in the pulpit and preach it. It's like, well, you should do that and you should do it well, but there are many, many other things that a shepherd must do. Just preach.
Like equip the saints to do the work of ministry beyond
Yeah,
preaching.
Ephesians 4:12 doesn't apply to just the pulpit. So you need to be looking at the culture of the church. You need to be having these conversations. And Dad, you've brought up the book Not Your Parents' Offering Plate, I don't know how many times on this show, but I think it bears repeating. That is an excellent book. I find myself recommending that book to pastors who are like, I don't know that I can do this. I don't know that I can talk to people about money. It's like, yeah, you can, and you need to. And this book will explain why. They're not.
We need to meet that author someday. We may have sold as many of his books
What's
as
really funny
anybody
is,
has.
yeah, we have sponsors on the show. We're grateful for our sponsors. They're not one of the book is not one of them. We just really
They're not.
like it. We don't.
Yes,
There's no kickback or anything here. I'm just wondering if this author.
but there's
I'm,
never a kickback.
I'm
Never a
wondering.
kickback.
I'm wondering if. Yeah, we're talking about giving, so let's be let's be clear about some of the financial arrangements
Let's
here.
don't use the word kickback.
I'm just wondering if he even knows that we talk about the book. But anyway,
Well, his Amazon numbers improve whenever we talk about it. So maybe if you watch
you
his
have to
shows.
have conversations around giving. You have to equip your people through groups, through discipleship material. You have to build a culture of sacrificial giving. This is not something that you can. Preaching alone isn't enough. You have to preach about it, yes, but preaching alone is not enough.
When we talk about establishing multiple channels of giving, I think I know the path that you want to go on this. There are two possible ways to talk about it. One is to have different types of pockets that people can give to. The other is the mechanism by which they give. So the different pockets could be a building fund, a mission fund, or the general fund. The mechanism by which they give is passing the plate, having some type of ACH debit or credit card credit, the or text to give or something like that. So I think you're probably looking at the latter, but multiple channels could refer to
Yeah, I
both of
like the
those.
idea of we pass the plate, we have giving boxes, we have text to give, we have ACH, we do online giving, we allow for credit cards. I mean, if there is a way to give, we accept that. By the way, one thing that is often missed are required distributions and churches being set up to be able to receive those required distributions. Dad, you want to talk briefly about that since you're of age?
You're talking about RMD, required minimal
Correct.
distribution. Is that? I want to make sure
Yes.
we're going here. RMD is a term, and thank you for saying since I am of age. I mean, you're going to remind me of my elderly status as much as you
You're
want to,
speaking
but you
from
know
a
what?
place
You're
of
my firstborn.
experience.
Required minimum distributions is something that happens if you have a deferred fund like a 401k or 403b. You put that money in there tax free, one tax. When you take it out, it is taxed. And so the government at some point is going to tell you you have to start taking your required minimum distributions.
That's
Is that
exactly what
what
I'm
you're talking
talking about.
about
But
now?
your
I want to make sure.
church has to be set up to receive them from typically a brokerage account.
Yes. So a lot of people will say, in fact, I was talking to your brother, Jess, and he has a giver who gives his required minimum distribution, all of it, all of the distribution coming off of his 401k, because as it's coming to the recipient, it is fully taxable. And they may say, that's not money I need to live off of. That's money that I could give away. And so you can set up a mechanism where those who are in retirement, their required minimum distribution is going to the church in full or partial.
That's
So
exactly
that's
what I'm
what you're
talking
talking
about. We
about.
actually had one of our stewardship committee members who he's of age too. Let me just put it that way, and he has RMDs. Yeah,
Welcome to the
yeah, and he
club.
went
Your
he went around to all
church
of our
fellows.
classes that have older people in them, and just explained what it was. They didn't even know, and so we have people now set up because they like, well, yeah, I don't need this money. I didn't know it could go to the church.
Or
Yeah,
I
I
don't
don't
need
need
all
all
of
of
it.
it, or don't need a portion of it, or whatever it is. Yeah, and I didn't know I could get a tax benefit from this. They didn't even know, and so we just went on a little campaign and told people about it. And there were those that wanted to sign up. And you may say, "Well, that is that right?" And of course, it's right. You're just informing people. You're not strong arming them into anything, and you certainly don't want to guilt them into it. But you got to let them know, and you can set your church up to receive these RMDs. I think it's back to this. It's this idea of multiple channels for giving. You have to get creative. We had, believe it or not, we had actual gold given during our capital campaign. Somebody brought in gold bullion.
Wow.
So the question,
Wow.
let's say that happens. Somebody donates a car, which is always a fun thing to happen. Somebody donates gold or diamonds. We actually, I think I've had diamonds given before in a previous church.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
diamonds are
What do you do
forever.
with that?
I liquidated
Absolutely.
immediately.
That's exactly right. Somebody gives you stock, somebody gives you gold, somebody gives you diamonds.
You don't play the
Don't
market.
play the market. And by the way, your church will be tempted to play the market. We had a case at a previous church where I served. Without getting into all the details, we received a significant amount of stock through the demutualization of a healthcare provider. So, for those of you in the financial world, like, you can know what that is. It was a bunch of stock.
And the rest of
Yeah,
you can ignore it.
and it was worth a lot of money, like $300,000-$400,000. And the idea was, hey, let's hang on to this and see if it goes up. No, 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 no. You liquidate that stock immediately. Somebody gives you gold, don't play the market. I don't like the idea of churches becoming investment houses. You're there to do God's work. God blessed you with that gift in the moment. Liquidate it and put it to work.
And we're going to have another podcast in the near future talking about when churches receive gifts other than money, what to do with them. And we're going to go in more detail about RMD. We're going to go in detail. We may even talk about what happens if you receive cryptocurrency, because that could be something
If
that
you
will come
struggle
in the
with
future.
Bitcoin, just send me all of your cold storage via USB. I will make sure that I put it to good use. So if you've got 4, 5, 10 Bitcoin laying around and you just don't feel right about it, I'll just send me your cold storage. I'll be glad to take
Sam, it's so sacrificial of you. So we're talking about sacrifice. Financial statements, they should be easy to read. Some of them reek of complexity where you almost wonder if church leadership is putting it out there to be a little oblique.
unnecessary complexity. And
Yes.
hopefully you're not using financial statements to hide how good or bad your church is. Please print easy to read, easy to understand financial statements. And I get that not everyone can read a balance sheet, not everyone can read a cash flow statement, but most people understand an income statement. And so just make it very clear. Here's the money we took in, here's the money we paid out. These are our revenues, these are our expenses, and we were
That's
we
easy
were
to
either
understand.
in the red,
It
negative,
does not have to be some
or in the
typo.
black, positive. And be very clear about where your cash reserves are. This is the amount of money that we have in reserve. We have this amount of cash in the bank. These are very important things that I believe every church member has a right to know. And I know not everyone's going to agree with me on that. But I think if you are a member of a church, you have a right to know the basics of the financials. We have a complete open book at West Bradenton. If you want to know any debit or credit, we'll tell you. Like, we don't hide anything. And I believe that complete transparency is the best way to go. But at a minimum, you need to give to your people, for those that want it, easy to read financial statements so people can at least understand where the church is at.
You're talking about financial accountability. Anything else you want to add to that? I mean, you've talked about transparency. You've talked about anybody can see information. You've talked about easy to read statements. Anything else for financial
Consistency.
accountability?
Create a system
Okay.
and be consistent with that system. There's lots of ways that you can set up financial accountability, but just make sure you're consistent. So, we have a treasurer, we have a bookkeeper, we have a stewardship committee, and we have an accountant. And all of them have, kind of independent access to portions of the books so that there's no one person that has complete control and they can put it on lockdown. That's an impossibility. Not only that, when we receive funds on a Sunday, because we still have people, believe it or not, putting money in the plate and putting money in those giving boxes on a Sunday morning, we have a very clear system of how that money is transferred from the point that it is given to a safe box in an undisclosed location, which, by the way, as the pastor, I have no idea where it is. And if you are the lead pastor, it is really worth it for you not to even know like how the money gets transferred around. I have a hard rule and people will try to give me their offering envelopes on a Sunday morning. And I've just had to say, listen, thank you for giving. Because of accountability, I don't take these things from people, but there's a giving box right over there. You can put it in there. Let me show you where it is so in the future you can put it there. And people have learned, just I don't take
That's good.
cash. I don't take offering envelopes. Man, I could put that in my coat pocket and forget about it. And then 6 months later, people are wondering, like, why did this check not clear? And then it's always been in my coat pocket. You just don't want to have to explain yourself there. So a very consistent system.
And in your relationship with church members, no one should violate the confidentiality of
Absolutely.
giving. It's there, and it is not to be broken. I have seen some churches that actually post their giving publicly. In fact, I did a consultation several years ago with one church that ranked givers and put it on a board.
Ill-advised.
You're stunned.
Ill-advised. Yes, that's ill-advised.
Okay.
Um, sometimes givers will tell me what they're giving. They'll give me a heads up, and that's fine. We have a rule where I don't see names and amounts, but I will get reports. and I'll have general ideas of, top givers and things like that. But I never know who is giving what amount. And I think that's a healthy balance. And I know not everyone will agree with that. And if people have some different viewpoints on how much should the lead pastor know. But I think it's important for the lead pastor to know the faithful givers and the top givers, just not necessarily the amounts. And certainly don't violate confidentiality with any individual giving record. We are very, very careful with that. Posting a name and an amount for the public to see is I don't want to say it's criminal, but it's certainly unethical, and you just don't want to do that.
It's unethical. Yeah, it's not a criminal. It's not a violation of that because a lot of nonprofits actually thank people according to the category of funding they're giving. So it's not criminal, but it's certainly in a church is unethical. Uh, this is important. When people give, or even before they give, they need to know the mission of the church. They're not giving for salaries. They're not giving for a building. They're not giving for this. Those funds may be used in that regard, but that's toward the greater mission. And you have to remind people again and again of the mission. Uh, your younger brother reminds us again and again, we exist because everyone needs the hope of Jesus. And he says that again and again. He said, that's what these funds are, so we can get the hope of Jesus out to the world. You do the same
Yeah, we
as
actually
well.
have a time every week where we pass the plates still, and most of our giving is online, but it's during that time when the plates are passed where we actually talk about what you're giving to and why. And we'll tell stories during that time of, like, recently there was some tornadoes that went through an area of Kentucky, and we just mentioned that we as a church helped. We had a really neat story that we just don't have time to tell on this show right now, but really neat story of a family that we helped in Kentucky. Our church did. And it was amazing the amount of money people gave to help this family. And the only reason that happened is because we got in front of the church and said, hey, we've already done this. If you want to help more, great. This is when you give, this is what you're giving to. And people really bought in. People want to know the good stuff that's happening in the church. Use the offering time as a way to tell that story.
Well, this is helpful. We're going to dig deeper. We're going to talk about giving from some of those other ways. We'll get if you say, what is this RMD thing? That sounds like some type of robotic figure. And what do you mean you get an automobile or you get gold bullion or something like that? We're going to talk about those in a future episode because that happens in churches, and if it hasn't happened in your church, some of it may need to. Like you said, the discussion of required minimum distributions, that may be a conversation that you could have in your church if you have people who are retirement age or coming toward retirement age. They would like to know. It's not because you're begging or just trying to get more money for whatever. It's they need to know that is an option because some of them would love to take that option. Let me mention this. This is kind of exciting. The first book that is out in the Tyndale Church Answers Partnership is the Church Revitalization Checklist by Sam Rainer. So congratulations, Sam. That's a big deal. This is a long-term partnership between Church Answers and Tyndale, and this partnership has been inaugurated with your book that just came out in January. So we are excited that's what Tyndale said. Hey, we want you to mention that on behalf of our partnership. That's Tyndale requesting that. So pastors and particularly denominational and adjudicatory leaders who could buy these in volume to hand out to leaders, this is a great, great resource that you can have. It's church revitalization, so important, but it's a checklist. And it's put into a very readable form in this hardcover book. And I encourage you to go to it. You can see the link about where you can go to this. Look at the link there. And of course, you can go to Amazon or other places as well to get it. But we have a link where you can get it through Church Answers in Tyndale as well. We recommend this highly. We recommend this book. Of course, we recommend it because it's part of our partnership and because Sam wrote it, but we recommend it because we really know that it's going to do great work. So
It's Sam,
congratulations on that, Sam.
SAM. There's no H, because that would completely change the meaning of my name.
Yeah, you don't want to be
You
sham.
went from Tom to Thom. Sam to Sham just doesn't make sense.
That was a 60s
Sham?
group. Sam the
Oh,
Sham and the
I know that
Pharaohs.
one. Yeah.
Yeah. Wooly bully, wooly bully.
I think Sham
Or,
Wow,
you know,
the old infomercial, but you probably don't know that one. That's my my
I don't know
generation
that.
would know Sham Wow. Anyway, I don't know that I want to be
And Nita's
associated with
smiling
that,
because y'all are the same generation, so she understands. And I'm totally
but it's
out of
Sam,
that loop.
SAM, Rayner, and it's the Church Revitalization Checklist.
And some people will say that's RAIN, like rain coming down from the sky. ER.
I've
Have you
heard
ever
that
heard that
many times
before?
from my mother. Yes, it's German,
Yes,
not French. It's Rainer, not not
yes.
Rainier. But you know what? It doesn't bother us. Just as long as you buy the book, you can spell my name any way you want. That's all I care about.
Sam Rainer, RAINER. You'll see the link that is there. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. Thank you always for joining us at Rainer on Leadership. Watch us on YouTube. Sam, I think we're continuing to see that grow just every little bit. It's growing. So, yes, if you are watching, you are seeing us now. Of course, many of you have been with us since the beginning on the podcast at churchanswers.com or Spotify or Google or, of course, iTunes, wherever you do. Let us know you're there. It may ask for a rating or review. YouTube may ask for a subscription. Just let us be part of your family and let us come into your listening or viewing audience on a regular basis. So sign up and review there. And I always thank you for joining us at churchanswers.com, where we are in Rainer on Leadership, where we are helping churches get healthier together.